Welcome, one and all, to JWC Livestream. It's another episode of Ricky's Reads on JWC Livestream. We've been reading Nidhogg Chronicles, which I think you can see the cover of. Nidhogg Chronicles is a crazy book, folks, and so far it's been creepy, I'm sure. Maybe a little of this, little of that, but we're getting into chapters now where things are going to get pretty crazy. So trigger warning, all kinds of warnings for people who are affected by violence. Not in this chapter, probably next week, but figure I have you brace for that. It's our world is a violent world, so sometimes fiction, art imitates life, as they say. But anyway, this is Nidhogg Chronicles, Crusade of Shadows, Chapter 9. It's Nidhogg Chronicles, Crusade of Shadows by Richard Andrew Olkus, who is the author, myself. And this is Chapter 9, Summoned to Mars Base. When Nidhogg had finally pulled herself together, she discovered that many hours passed by in what felt like a series of moments. Kayla sat across from her, seeming to be likewise composed, and then they smiled at each other, one in gratitude, the other in a Promethean rapture. Kayla's speech was slightly lispy, slurred by a gradual lifting weight of the target from her blood.
So, what did you think? Was it everything you thought it would be?
Nidhogg's smile brightened, and her hissing voice came in a creamy tone of satisfaction. Sounding strange even to herself.
Yes, Kayla, it was perfect, blissful, transcendental. We are going to need a lot more of this as a target. A lot more.
Just as she finished saying this, a comm from the control center hailed Nidhogg, heralded by a flashing light on the terminal to her left. She got to her feet and touched the screen to accept the hail, seeing an image of Indrid, the MIB, appear in a holographic projection.
Yes, Indrid, what is it now?
Indrid's face wore a smirk, being smudged by its typical insolence and sardonic slant. But his voice was frosty with duty, and Nidhogg thought it chiller than usual. Miss Nidhogg, we have been contacted by the cylinder in Mars orbit. They request that we expedite our departure time due to some unforeseen plans for them which have been rescheduled. What are your orders? She gestured for Indrid to wait for a moment and then consulted with Kayla, who, of course, was mission commander in their ruse, and so would need to make the final call. Kayla nodded without a word, and so Nidhogg looked back at the hologram and responded,
Yes, well, very well, Indrid. You may proceed. Our mission here is done for the time being.
Indrid said, Acknowledged. Then the hologram vanished, and they were able to face each other again. Kayla got up and made her way toward one of the instruments which she had left on the table before they dosed each target. It was a PKF meter, a device for the measuring of psychokinetic force, and Kayla had been using it to take valences of the artifact that Nidhogg pointed out in the Martian crypts. She smiled brightly and turned the result to face Nidhogg, glad to show her the positive results.
Look, Nidhogg, it's the artifact. It does the same thing as the one I have and seems to be even a little bit better at deflecting PKF. This leads me to think that we need to do a correlative study on the two places where these devices were found, the purpose of which would be to determine if there is some way to locate any other such device in the necropolis.
Nidhogg smirked as she scanned the data, husking a whisper as if she were thinking aloud.
We could do better. go over the PKF data that I assume the grav drones measured during the auto mapping procedure. That data should be able to give us leads, right?
Kayla made a fist and laughed vibrantly, saying,
Yes, that scan is bound to turn up something useful to that end. Man, you really are on point today. I'm so glad that we are working together this way.
Kayla reached over to the device and handed it to Nidhogg.
This is yours, Nidhogg. Later, when we are back in Earth space, we can go over how to optimize its utility. Now, however, we should go to the control center and feign interest in the ongoings of your saucer. It is best to keep up appearances.
Nidhogg agreed, although somewhat reluctantly. She was drunk on the freedom that Kayla brought to her life. And having to go back to the old structure of the collective's grand change program made her feel ill. Nevertheless, she went to the changing area and got a clean robe and a tool harness meant to hold scientific instruments. In the pockets of this harness, she packed several vials of Target, the Martian device, a disintegrator, as well as several other useful devices that she normally left to the warbling brays. It was time for her to embrace the life of a Shadow Crusader, and that meant taking her own duties for the collective more seriously. How would she ever become a superhero unless she rose to the task? As she pulled up the billowing hood, Amishati danced into view. Her smiling green face and glowing eyes were bright as an autumn moonlight, telepathic voice coming high like a springtime wind chime.
You look breathtaking, Niddy. I'd say that you're in a much better frame of mind than before. I am so happy for you. Isn't it better to use what the collective gives you for your own ends than to drag your self-defeating feet and accomplish nothing? You are wise enough to know the answer, I trust.
Nidhogg smiled pleasantly at Amishati, enjoying the positive feedback from one who she had come to trust. Some sort of telepathic download occurred during the quasi-conscious state of the Target's dose as it metabolized, and this tremendous data had paved a way for Nidhogg. It was far easier to understand Amishati in her dead world, and so empathize with the whole situation they faced. Mars had its own telepathic collective those many ages ago, and they too oppressively suffocated lesser minds. Throughout Martian history, there were many wars between them, but it came down to an extinction-level event, killing the planet to bring peace to Mars. Where Mars failed, Earth must succeed. There were just no two ways about it. Nidhogg wore a sinister grin as she regarded Amishati, speaking telepathically so that Kayla would not hear.
Wiser now that you have disclosed your Martian revelations. Thank you. Now, please be with me as Kayla and I deal with these mutton-headed dolts that crew my ship.
Amishati leapt and danced joyously wherever Nidhogg walked. Kayla changed also, and the two hybrids met in the curvaceous hallway, moving confidently to the control center. As the automatic doors slid open, Indrid and the Grey Controller acknowledged Nidhogg. Her commanding voice hissed balefully at them, while Kayla took her seat, and Amishati danced invisibly all over the place.
Status report.
Indrid replied in his typically loathsome fashion. Mistress Nidhogg, the Cylinder's command has indicated that a medical emergency is the reason for the scheduled departure. Someone needs a healer, it would seem. They are being rushed in from Phobos. Nidhogg nodded, then regarded the Grey Controller.
You had better get us up there then. This sounds like a big deal.
Nidhogg took a seat in her command chair, then turned to Kayla with a sly smile, glad that their plans were panning out. Just as a smile was returned, the Grey Controller looked up from his control station and said,
Mistress Nidhogg, I'm picking up 2 vessels heading towards us on an intercept course.
A plunge of dread swept down Nidhogg's spine as she apprehended the message. Then he continued,
"We're being held. Shall I patch them through?"
Nidhogg looked to Kayla, whose face had gone pale, obviously coming to the same grim conclusions. Nidhogg nodded coolly and said,
"You may patch it through."
Before Nidhogg appeared a hologram of another MIB, looking to be a brother organism to Indrid. His ghastly face leered its unsympathetic brutality, projecting malice and accusation as would any other militant guardian.
"I am Carnage, Mars Flight Control. What are you doing here in Martian space? We have not given you any clearance to be here. Explain yourself."
Kayla shot to her feet and moved into frame of the holographic feed. Nidhogg swallowed in a dry throat, feeling anger grip her features.
"We are rendering aid to an archaeological survey. Another saucer, Earthside, was facing technical difficulties, so we offered our services. What of it?"
Carnage looked unimpressed by the explanation given. He smiled wickedly, growling like a sheep-killing dog.
"Mistress Nidhogg, you will instruct your controller to submit to our flight plan. We will escort you back to Mars base. The tall one wants to have a word with you."
The hologram terminated. Nidhogg turned to Kayla, feeling the eyes of Indrid and the great controller on her back as she did so. Amishati danced to a stop right next to Kayla, peering over her slumped shoulders.
Nidhogg, my beloved, have no fear. I am with you. And besides this, remember that you would rather die than obey them any longer.
Nidhogg knew that Amishati was right, but judging by how Kayla looked, she could not shed the panic which ensnared them. She panned her gaze to face Indrid and the great controller, hissing gut-churning orders to them that she desperately didn't want to give.
"Great controller, comply with what Master Carnage said. I'll not let him tarnish us any further with his misinformed gossip."
The great controller nodded his reply.
"Yes, mistress."
Nidhogg got up and gestured for Kayla and Amishati to follow. They found themselves in the observations deck, gathered close together, each looking to the other for a way forward. Kayla spoke up first.
Okay, so listen, we might have to make a break for it. The tall one is not known for his merciful qualities. And so it might be best if we head out of the solar system for a while. I'm sure your saucer is well provisioned for such a voyage, yes?
Nidhogg could see that Kayla's panic was mounting. Amishati leaned in, making double mudras with dexterous fingers, and said,
Oh, beloved, you need not be so worried. I don't blame you for being so faithless, but one day you will learn to fully trust me. One day, maybe one day.
Nidhogg took hold of Kayla's upper arms forcefully and spoke while looking into her wildly grimacing face.
Listen, Kayla, we have to get our lies straight. They won't do anything to me because they never do. I get away with a lot of stuff and they will just punish me in some trivial way. So what are we going to say? What we are going to say is that it was my idea. I talked you into doing this, and then the blame will fall on me. But they will have to hide both devices. We will have to hide both devices, which blunt the collective surveillance so that they won't be confiscated, all right?
Kayla looked at Nidhogg with a face suddenly relieved, but likewise touched by the certainty of guilt. She spoke in a low voice, as if their adversaries were listening at the door.
But Nidhogg, they are going to...
Nidhogg put two fingers on Kayla's lips to silence her.
No, Kayla. What you have shown me, the target, the Martian crypts, the possibility of resisting them, it is too important.
We have got to bury your direct involvement. And even if it takes 100 years, we have got to put your plans into motion. We cannot allow their authoritarian reach to dash what might be the only hope for our kind. Look at what happened on Mars. That world is dead, and I am to understand that they once had a collective not unlike our own. If that one failed, then why should we think that Earth's collective won't likewise see the planet dead? We must not give in to them. We must fight.
Having heard her hissing voice and comprehending what she was driving at, Kayla looked at Nidhogg as if she were a true Shadow Crusader already. Kayla's reply was calmer and more confident.
All right, Nidhogg, we will play it your way.
Then, in the final moments before they docked in Mars base, they aligned their deceits into the most coherent story, taking time to work it through. Their hybrids were no strangers to lies and deflections, so by the time that Indrid summoned them to the off-ramp, their scheming had already been locked down. Judgment awaited them. All right, so that was chapter 9. Summoned to Mars Base is the chapter title. Nidhogg Chronicles Crusade of Shadows by Richard Andrew Olkus, chapter 9, Summoned to Mars Base. Thanks for listening in. Bear in mind that this book gets crazy pretty soon, next chapter. So you're warned. Thanks so much for listening. Please go check out joeswritersclub.com. Sign up for sign up on our forum at joeswriters.club. Check out our social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. And most importantly, head over to YouTube. Go to our page, JWC Livestream, Joe's Writers Club. Like and subscribe, and please share to anyone who you think would be interested in this content or would get something out of it. We appreciate it. Joe's Writers Club is out there to help the writers community in whatever way we can. And thank you for listening to one episode of Ricky's Reads. That's Nidhogg Chronicles, Crusade of Shadows, available on Amazon. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll hear from you again real soon. You guys stay creative out there, and take care.